Alright, today I'm going to be talking to you about cannabis. We will travel through time from when cannabis was first legal to the legislation that first made it illegal to afterward and its prohibition. Did you know that the first piece of legislation on cannabis was in 1937? It was called the Marijuana Tax Act. I have done extensive research on this topic and would like to share with you the fruits of my labor. So we know that the Marijuana Tax Act was passed in 1937. But let's back up a bit and go to back when cannabis and the plant and its role before the bill passed. Cannabis thrived in the American marketplace and on its farmlands in the early 1900s. Most water vessels and their supplies like canvas sails and ropes were made of hemp because salt water deteriorates cotton. According to the Etymology Online Dictionary, the word cannabis actually derives from the Latin term cannabis, which is the plant that hemp comes from. Hemp was a necessity in the early U.S. history, especially during war times when imported supplies were cut off and self-sustainability was crucial. The government actually made cannabis temporarily legal during World War II so that the supplies could be in regular flow again. Now let's travel forward to some important figures. During this time of legislation, Rudolf Diesel, you may know the name, he invented and patented the diesel engine in 1893 with the intentions of running it off of seed oil, vegetable oils, including hemp oil. Henry Ford, also in the auto industry, ran his first Model T off of hemp gasoline. And this was described in the 1941 Popular Mechanics magazine. There was also an inventor who came up with a hemp decorticating machine, which was for the paper-making process. In essence, this made hemp a viable paper source. Another group of important figures was a banker and Treasury Secretary, Andrew Mellon. Then there was the DuPont petrochemical owner, right here, Lamont DuPont. Then the Hearst Corp logging company owner, William Hearst. And Andrew Mellon's nephew, Harry Anslinger, who was the leader of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Mellon, the Treasury Secretary, also owned Gulf Oil Company, and his bank loaned DuPont the money to buy out General Motors. William Hearst and DuPont were business partners in the paper industry. So you may be wondering how all of this connects to cannabis. In 1925, Henry Ford said to a New York reporter that ethyl alcohol was the fuel of the future. New technology had enabled the hemp industry to inexpensively produce fuel, paper, oil, and textiles. In fact, 1 acre of hemp over a 20-year period produced the same amount of paper as 4.1 acres of trees over the same 20-year period, according to the Dewey and Merrill Bulletin number 404 in 1916. As I mentioned, the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics was Harry Anslinger, who was Andrew Mellon's nephew. Harry Anslinger presented the Marijuana Tax Act. And it was speculated that the Treasury Department actually is the ones who drafted the bill. He submitted this bill to the House Ways and Means Committee, not the Drug Committee, not the Agriculture Committee, and not the Commerce Committee. Critics speculate that this was because the Ways and Means Committee is the only committee that goes straight to the House floor for a vote and that no other committee gets to debate on it. Nonetheless, the bill was passed and done so without taking any roll call. So none of the rumors about the bill being made in the Treasury Department were confirmed, but several people point to that. This act essentially placed a prohibitive tax on cannabis. So it didn't outlaw it, but it made it harder to buy it and its seeds. So after this bill passed, production of cannabis and hemp was eventually outlawed just 1 year later. So we now know that the Secretary of Treasury, Andrew Mellon, had direct ties to the auto industry, the fuel industry, the oil industry, and the paper industry through his personal business ventures. So cannabis in its history and economic stance before this bill proved to be a competitor with all these industries. So now that cannabis is illegal, we can travel forward to more present times. Cannabis is prohibited by the federal government now, although at some state levels they've made it legal medicinally, and some of them have gone as far as to making its recreational use also legal. So as of April 2015, 23 states and D.C. have legalized marijuana on some level. Throughout world history, cannabis has been used medicinally to treat illnesses like blood clots, ulcers, expelling poison from scorpion stings, and has even been used as an anesthetic. So the word anesthesia actually derives from the Chinese word, which literally means cannabis intoxication. Since cannabis is legal, tax dollars are obviously used to enforce that law. Approximately $16 billion each year goes specifically toward funding the nationwide incarceration of inmates in prison for marijuana-related crimes. So, as we travel through time, cannabis has been legal, illegal, and partially legal again. Regardless of your stance on the subject, you now know some facts about it that you can base your opinion off of. You have learned about cannabis and its product history. You learned about its first legislation, and you also learned some of the more current info about its economic impact. So this is a very controversial subject, but now you have facts. Thanks for listening.